So when you are ready, we will start.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 11 on blockchain-based data management for supporting IoT, smart cities, and communities. This webinar forms an integral part of the ongoing Digital Transformation for Cities and Communities webinar series. It is being co-organized by the ITU together with the Open and Agile Smart Cities and the United Nations University. This webinar will explore the role of IoT, blockchain, in accelerating smart cities and communities. To kickstart today's event and to commence the discussions, I would like to call upon Dr. Fabio Biggi, Vice Chairman of the ITUT Study Group 20 on IoT, smart cities and communities. Over to you, Dr. Biggi.
Thank you. Welcome to this 11th episode of ITU webinar series on digital transformation from city and community. Today's webinar is dedicated to the theme blockchain-based data management for supporting Internet of Things and smart city and community. For years, ITU has worked to support development of smart, sustainable city and coordinate the deployment of ICT and digital technology through the standardization. We understand that data management has long been one of the key aspects of smart city and community. Effective data collection, storage, and sharing enable city to support digital application across verticals and countless different city functions. Blockchain technology possesses the characteristics of trust, transparency, traceability, and accountability. As we will learn today, these characteristics have significant potential in boosting the capacity of city to tackle many challenges associated with the data management. International standards are the key for unlocking this potential. IoT Study Group 20 is the lead study group on the Internet of Things and Smart City and Community. The group has developed a technical standard that provide a technical guidance for defining the requirements, reference model, and common capability of blockchain in data management. Today, we will be joined by experts from Study 20 and who will be sharing more information on this standard. We will be learning more about how IoT standards are supporting city and leverage blockchain technology for data management and accelerate the deployment of new IoT solutions. Once again, I would like to thank everyone for joining today's event, and also in particular the speaker will follow me. With that, I wish to all a productive and informative webinar. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Biji, for the enlightening remarks. Before we commence with the core part of the discussion for today's webinar, I would like to take you through some of the housekeeping rules for today. So all questions from the audience will be taken specifically during the Q&A session, and all presentations will be delivered. Participants can submit their questions by typing into the Q&A section seen at the bottom of your screen. When submitting the question, please use the Q&A icon. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be shared specifically on the webpage of this webinar. All presentation material will also be made available. And please note that the closed captioning is also available for this event. So without further ado, let's proceed with the first session of today, which is dedicated to more cryptocurrency, how blockchain is transforming in cities and communities. So for this, I would like to hand the floor to Professor Martin Brinskov, who's the chair of Open and Agile Smart Cities. So over to you, Professor Brinskov.
Thank you so much, Maiteli and colleagues, for the kind introduction. My name is Martin Brunskov, and as you said, I'm the chair of the global network of local networks, Open Agile Smart Cities. It's my pleasure to be the moderator for this session. I look really forward to these expert views on blockchain and ledgers, maybe in general, and the role in data processing and management around smart city communities. Blockchain has remarkable potential to the development of local data ecosystems and what we generally call smart cities and communities, of course, closely connected to the Internet of Things and the whole computing continuum in general. The immutability of blockchain technologies has enabled communities to better manage and support a broad range of services, and now particular streaming IoT services and platform in a more secure and transparent manner. There's also, of course, a evolutionary perspective on this, which of course we will touch upon. There are many issues related to well, the different intricacies of these technologies, and I'm sure we will have the opportunity to dive into this. In this session, we'll have a closer look on how blockchain is empowering. We'll also try and identify some of the standardization requirements and capabilities that would be required by recommendations that could help accelerate the application of blockchain and distributed ledger technologies in a local community, local authority, ecosystem, whether it's urban or less densely populated. If we have time, hopefully we will also have the opportunity to have some question and answer towards the end. So please do use the Q&A box to put some questions here, and we'll try to pick up on them as we go along. We have lots of information to cover today, so without further delay, please welcome our first speaker, Sumaya Ben-Daou. She is a research coordinator at United Nations UNU-EGOV, and also the operating unit on policy-driven electronic government. That's a think tank devoted to multidisciplinary research on how digital transformation may contribute to empowered democratic citizenship, trustworthy public infrastructures, more inclusive societies, and in broad terms, to sustainable development. She's also an international consultant for UNDP in Uzbekistan and invited professor of e-governance and ICT for government and public services at the University of Minho in Portugal. Please, Sumaya, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Good morning, good afternoon. So I will be presenting today a research that we have prepared for the U4SSC. I will just share my screen. Is it okay? Everyone is seeing the screen?
Yes, we hear you and we see you and we see your slides.
Thank you very much. So this research have been realized a couple of years ago, and we have updated it internally at UNU-EGOV with other use cases to develop a framework on supporting decision makers and city managers in their decision making and their adoption of blockchain, because we have seen through years that there is an increasing interest among countries, cities, to adopt this technology. So to understand better this technology, I will start by presenting quickly how this report, but I will focus a little bit more on the use cases and the case study that helped us to develop this framework. So basically, we all know that cities today are facing a tremendous number of challenges, and these challenges are increasing tremendously with this pandemic situation that we have faced and we are still facing lately, and in many different ways. So we have seen that the inadequate housing and infrastructure, particularly in poor and areas where it was very difficult during the pandemic situation to stay inside the houses, and in confinement it was problematic, and increasing poverty and hungers. Air pollution obviously is a huge problem that cities are facing today, and we're seeing classification in Pakistan, in India, in China of many cities among the most polluted cities, in Europe as well, in Macedonia, in many countries that are facing this issue that is becoming a health situation as well, impacting negatively our health. We have seen deforestation, environmental hazard, waste accumulation, and waste management as well is becoming for many cities. In my cities, for example, I'm coming from Tunisia, and in Tunis, in many cities in Tunis are facing a tremendous problem for the management of waste. We are facing as well biodiversity losses, and we are trying to find solution through the Sustainable Development Goals in order to address these challenges, and particularly through the SDG 11 that is targeting these challenges in particular, and to making a better life, improving the quality and an inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable environment for the inhabitants of and residents of cities. So this problem is exacerbated through years, and we have difficulty to manage them. And we looked in different solutions, and smart sustainable cities are presented as one of the solutions through the integration and the use of technology to improve the control of many of these challenges. So we adopted in this report the definition of smart cities and adoption of technology that was proposed and recommended by ITU, which is saying that a smart sustainable city is an innovative city that uses information and communication technology and other means to improve quality of life, efficiency of urban operation and service, and competitiveness, which ensuring that it meets the need of present, future generation with respect to economic, social, environmental, as well as cultural aspects. So this is very important to highlight that technology is not seen in this situation as the solution, the miracle solution to these challenges, but a mean that will help us to tackle some of these challenges and hopefully to find some answer or some solution to this issue. So we have seen in Smart Sustainable City that technology can be involved in different ways, and sorting issues and research in smart city have introduced smart people, smart environment, smart living, smart mobility, smart governance, and smart economy, different dimension of smart cities to tackle some of these challenges. So this is not, we've seen like through years, like I think more than a decade now, we are working on smart cities. And we are still facing many challenges in different areas. So for implementing the smart city concept in these different dimensions. So we are facing issues related to security. We are still facing issue related to communication, social and regulatory frameworks, data sharing and transparency. We are facing as well, and it has been exacerbating, and we've seen it particularly during the pandemic, issue related to privacy and traceabilities and surveillance tools to make the life easier, but at the same time it's addressing other types of issues and challenges. Trust is a real problem, and it's increasing as well between public services and citizens and residents as well, and financing the smart cities are some of the challenges that the implementation of smart cities are seeing nowadays. So we have proposed to explore one of the technology to address these smart city challenges. And blockchain technology, it can be a very interesting tool for trust. First and foremost is a technology that is covering for trust, boosting data transparency and traceability in smart city, as well as offering a decentralized IT infrastructure. And it's very interesting for city managers that are starting to implement their IT infrastructure and to leapfrog and improve the situation, management situation of the city. So it can be a very interesting tool to explore in order to manage different areas for public services in city management for smart and sustainable cities, because it can help, first of all, to monitor different supply chains for cities, very important, execute and validate data trails. And we have many examples nowadays that are working and starting to use workflows using blockchain technology, ensure authenticity and integrity of data. Many cities are using this to validate the use for participation of the citizens in the city, and etc. So we will see different examples in few minutes through the use cases and case study that we have studied during this report. So I will go very quickly on some technical aspect, because I'm sure that in the audience there is expert on the technology better than me in blockchain technology. So blockchain is a sequence of block that is completely recording a set of data and transaction, such as a conventional public ledger, and it's enclosing a code that is storing transparent and shared databases where they are protected from deletion. So we have seen these different blocks adding to the system, and I will explain how it is working. So it's we call blockchain as the network of value in comparison to internet as the network of information. So in this network of value, it's basically helping to manage transactions. So when there is any transaction between two parties or more than two parties, the transaction is broadcast in the network. So everyone is informed about this transaction. And once this transaction is broadcast, the peers that are in the network will validate the transaction. And once it's validated, it will be added in a block. And this block will be added to the blockchain or to the chain of different codes of information. And this new blockchain, a block in the blockchain, will be distributed among the participants and what we call in the technical aspect as nodes. And this is when we consider as the transaction as completed. So this is based on different principles that are very relevant when we are talking about smart, sustainable cities. First of all, each party on the blockchain has access to the entire distributed database. So this is the concept of what we call decentralization. We are increasing here the concept of the security, which is one of the main challenges that we have faced in smart cities. So by having different copies of the databases and of the blockchain, we can have more security in concerning the information. Secondly, the communication occurs directly between peers without the intervention of a third party. So here we are facing something that is extremely relevant for cities is the disintermediation. So the city can be in contact directly with the citizen without an intermediary, or citizens between each other can be in contact without an intermediary. So we are facing here the phenomenon of disintermediation. Thirdly, the information about the transaction and associated value have provided to all the participants to access the network, but to remain anonymous or decide to reveal their identity. So here it is working with the consentment. So people have the choice to remain anonymous, so that is for protecting the privacy of people that are participating. And it's helping a lot, and we will see it in the cases, to citizens that have been either afraid or feeling not reluctant to participate because they will say, oh, they will to the decision making in the cities. It is very helpful as a tool to make them more engaged and participating actively in all the decisions related to the city. There is fourthly, it's related to the immutability characteristic of the technology. So this immutability concept is preventing any record in the databases from being deleted or changed. So once it's in the network, once it's in the blockchain, it cannot be deleted. So it's very good. It adds security, it adds transparency, but it's also add the protection of the data and manipulation of data and corruption and reduce human errors as well related to data. So this irreversibility of record, it's an important impact on public records in general. And finally, the digital nature of the ledger of the blockchain transaction can be programmed automatically. So this is through the technology of smart contracts. We can be able to set up rules and algorithms automatically that can help the city to manage many different aspects in the city related, for example, to parking or to different aspects related to identity as well, or to remind citizens about registration or participation or voting or any aspect, because it's done automatically from the city, and it can reduce the bureaucratic aspect as well as the redundancy in the activities. So there is different types of blockchain that are organized in a different architecture. So it's divided in two aspects. The first aspect is related on the ownership of the data. infrastructure. And the second aspect is related to the architecture based on who has the right to read, to write, or to commit permission to the participant. And this matrix is creating different types of blockchain. Some are public, some are private, others are hybrid. So we have the public permissionless blockchain, who is the type of blockchain that every participant have the right to have access to the network, but also have the right to read, write, or commit or validate the transaction. And this is exactly what we are seeing in the Bitcoin network. The second type, which is a hybrid type, public permissioned blockchain, is a public blockchain where everyone have access to the information, but you need the permission to write and read and validate information in the network. A lot of public services are using this public permission blockchain. Not all of them, but many of those that we have studied are adopting this type of infrastructure of blockchain. The third type, which is a private permission blockchain, is a very criticized type of blockchain because some of the researchers and technologists as well are not considering this type as a real blockchain, because you need to be invited to the network because it's a private network. And inside the network, you need to have a specific permission to either read, write, or commit or validate the transaction. And the last one, which is also a hybrid blockchain, it's a private permissionless blockchain. So private, so you need to be invited, but once you are invited, you have access to all the information to read it. You have the possibility to write in the blockchain, but also to validate in the blockchain. So those are the different type of blockchain. And as Martin was presenting earlier, there is a lot of opportunities in this technology, and we've seen already a lot of benefits as at the strategic level, at the organizational level, at the economic level, informational and technological level. Even though it's important to know that blockchain is a technology that is still ongoing. So there is a lot of research and development that are still be done. We have seen innovation and improvement on the blockchain technology, and it's changing constantly. So there is a study that have been that went out very recently in the UN system that have analyzed as well the cases, the use cases of blockchain in the UN system, and showed what are the real benefits that we have already obtained from this technology. And we've seen that is improving tremendously the collaboration between organizations, the share of data between inter-organizational share of data. We've seen as well more transparency. There is a reduction in all what is manipulation and fraud. And obviously it's impacting the corruption. We have an increasing trust among this organization that usually didn't have the opportunity to work together. And it's reducing cost as well, because it reduces the intermediaries. And in the level of security, we have an improved resilience to attack. We have more data integrity and high quality of data. It's reducing as well human errors and improve the access to information. We are still struggling and facing some barriers on the use of blockchain and challenges related to the immaturity of blockchain. So many people are still questioning this and decision makers as well, this technology, and are kind of seeing it as probably not mature enough or not enough projects that are ongoing right now, under development, sorry, still not operational. The very few in the public service are fully operational. There is also lots of improvement in the scalability, in the energy consumption with a new proof of concept. It is still questionable in the level of interoperability because the bridges with the existing system, particularly in the developing countries, it's very good because they are starting from zero. Most of them didn't have a system before, so they build it from scratch. But for organizations that have already a system in place, the bridges and the interoperability are a big question and a big issue that they are questioning. And of course, the limited technical skills, it's very difficult. So we are starting with many countries and cities that we have the opportunity to work with to build capabilities and skills around the blockchain technology, as it's presented as a technology for the future. And I will say the biggest challenge for blockchain technology, and we've seen it with the alignment with GDPR, is the legal framework and the regulatory uncertainty that this technology is creating. So we've seen as well projects dropping because of the lack of alignment with the existing regulation in place. So among the application of blockchain, so we organized the application, there is many. So every year, lots of application among in cities, in public service are increasing tremendously. So we've seen lots of countries and cities adopting blockchain technology. So we organized them in 3 different areas. So in the area of smart governance, smart people, and smart community, there is application on democracy and decision making. And I will present some examples that are now active and working in identity as well, in voting, public accounting, contract, and taxes. For example, the country Latvia is developing, not adopting, but it's developing a project on using of the taxes, a blockchain for managing taxes and verification of taxes. Law enforcement and legal system, there is a lot of policy services in different cities using a blockchain. Title and asset registration, this is the most used application of blockchain for public services in many developing countries and developed countries as well. Certification is another example that we have seen in Hungary, that we have seen in Malta, in many other countries. In the sector for smart living, smart environment, and smart mobility, healthcare services are adopting blockchain for medical records. Education, many schools in different cities are using now for the records of the students and the pupils blockchain, for making sure that there is no manipulation, because they notice that there is a lot of manipulation in registration of pupils in different neighborhoods. Social care, we are working with ISA and ILO in different projects of adopting blockchain in social care, mobility, and transportation through Europe. There is many a project for on management of mobility and transportation using blockchain, and at the environmental level for waste management, etc., and energy as well. So in this smart economy, we have blockchain is adopted. Of course, in finance sector is the most adopted. It's the sector that is adopting the most the blockchain technology, telecommunication, and energy. I will go quickly through use cases from this application of blockchain that are existing now, and that most of them are either ongoing or developed and operational. So we've seen, we've studied in the report the case of the debt relief in La Hague, which is a solution that have been developed in order to share and analyze the data about people and their debt without compromising their privacy. So it helped to share different information between different public service at the city level without harming the people that are in debt or that may face different challenges and situations. So this is one successful use case that is working and operational right now. There is also the verifying eligibility age in Amsterdam, which is a case of identity, use of identity. So we all know that we are facing this issue when ask you about identity, that you are providing much more information about yourself than is requested. So in many services or businesses, they are just asking to know if you are at the eligibility age, either for voting or for buying products or buying alcohol or buying tobacco or entering in any in some spaces. We need to validate that you are over 18 years old. And when you are providing an identity your identity card, you are providing your address, you are providing your social security number. I think in Portugal here, for example, the identity card, you have all your security numbers, your finance numbers for the tax payment. You have all much more information that can be harming when you are providing them, and it's an issue. So the Decode Ecosystem project have prepared this project, and it's also a project that is ongoing and very successful in Amsterdam. The same idea in and under the same umbrella have been realized in Barcelona, the city of Barcelona, with Digital Democracy and Data Commons. So this is a project of e-participation, so voting participation of citizens, but they can remain anonymous and provide only the information that they are consenting to participate to the voting in the city concerning any type of voting or signing petition, but remaining anonymous. So they are using blockchain for that. There is also another very interesting project in South Holland, an energy system. A similar project is in the city of New Jersey as well, where they are managing the renewable energy and the consumption of energy and the possibility of sharing this extra consumption of energy between different citizens. So this is a energy management system that they have put in place to be able to reduce cost of energy and manage the upgrading of current grids. In Russia as well, there is many projects in cities. So the Moscow Weekend Fairs is a project that have been added for the better governance of the city and the quality of life and reducing manipulation and corruption related to the participation to the weekend fairs, where everyone become equal, have equal chances and access to this weekend fair. And entrepreneurs and businesses can access and participate to the weekend fair using the blockchain technology as a solution to increase the transparency of the allocation of the trading sites in the weekend fairs, and avoiding any duplication of information or bribery to have access to that fairs. They have also the active citizen use case, which is e-participation as well in the decision-making of the city to increase the citizen engagement and participation. There is also many projects on land registry in Georgia, in Ghana, in Nigeria, in India, in many cities. So they are adopting it at the city level in many cities. There is also participation on cell tower in the decision making as well. The citizens are participating in the positioning of this cell tower in Italy. So those are different use cases that we have among the cases that we have analyzed. So we have done a cross-case analysis of all these use cases, and we have increased the number of use cases to be able to provide a framework for decision-making to city managers in their willingness to adopt blockchain, because there is it's big hype, and they are, oh, we are interested about blockchain, we would like to adopt blockchain, but they don't really know if they need it, or it's an important technology for them, or if it's worth it in terms of technology. So we have developed this framework that will help them to decide about the blockchain technology. So it's divided in different dimension. The technological dimension is the suitability. So if the issue that they are facing is a trust issue, it requires to store data and information, it involves multiple party, and it's related to a transactional transfer of value, it can be a valid option for the city. But it's not enough to have the suitability of the technology. It has to answer as well if it's smart decision. So if it will improve the involvement and the participation of the citizen, if it will help the city to manage multi-stakeholders environment, if it will contribute to a smart domain and support innovation in one of these domains where the city have a challenge. So in this case, yes, it can be a relevant technology. But even though it's not enough, we have to move to sustainability. Is it contributed to environment, social or economic sustainability, to one of the SDG? And we've seen that most of the cities are very keen on verifying this aspect, and we are happy with that. And lastly, if it's fitting with the situation, the context, the vision, if it's worth it in terms of challenge and the opportunities, if there is a governance system that is helping, if it's a priority as well for the city, and if it's fitting the model, and probably it will be very expensive to adopt this technology for the city. So it's important to analyze as well the situation. So all this will help the city manager and the decision maker in participating. So I will go very quickly through the I'm a little bit out of time, through the important consideration or the key consideration in adopting blockchain. So first of all, blockchain has to be in an ecosystem involving different partners. It's important as well to be successful in adopting blockchain to define a governance model, because there is many parties that are involved. Prioritizing sustainability and smartness over technology, because there is many technology that are very relevant. Maybe it's not the one that is more sustainable or more smart in the specific situation of the city. Complying with the standard and the regulation, because we've seen many projects dropping or stopping because it's not complying with the standard and regulation. Ensuring, of course, data protection and privacy, otherwise people won't participate. And acquiring knowledge and developing capabilities, because it can be a limit, a barrier to going further and having a successful use of this technology. So thank you very much for your attention, and I will be happy to answer any question if there is. And sorry for if I spent more time that I had.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sumaya. No, it's really good to have this broad overview. There's a lively conversation going on in the chat, in the Q&A. So please keep it coming. There's even a request to be able to do more interactive feedback and reactions. So maybe we can put that in the request feedback box. I think we should collect a very good questions. There are many already, both very specific ones and more general ones, but maybe catch up and see maybe if some of the other experts will already touch upon these. So let's, without further ado, move to the next presenter, Dr. Chu, who is a standardization engineer at CTE for the Technology and Planning Department, concentrating on blockchain standardization, especially in the network field, so related to IoT, smart cities, future networks, and how the multimedia and entertainment flows go through there. So, and he's currently participating in several study groups in ITU. So, Dr. Chu, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll share my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we see you, we see the screen, and we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. Good day to all. Thank you, Chair, again for inviting me today. I'm Chu Zhicheng from ZT Corporation. We are very pleased to see the increasing scale and influence of this activity. And we are honored to work with ITU to make contributions to the digital transformation for smart cities and communities. My topic today is empowering efficient data management in SDNC by using blockchain. The outline of this presentation contains 3 parts: the value of data, the role of blockchain, and the future trend. So first, we'll discuss the value of data. And in our opinion, the value lies in efficient management. The management in data lifecycle mainly contains 3 procedures, namely data collection, data management manipulation, and data application. The value of data can be finally realized in numerous SDNC applications. However, there would be plenty of complicated interactions between multiple data sources in the process of data transferring, storing, and utilizing, which may cause negative influence to data. Therefore, we believe that efficiency is the key point to enhance value of data. Then come to another question: how to achieve efficiency? Let's review the crisis of data in current IoT and SDNC applications. Malicious attack and tampering are 2 main kinds of threats in weak trusted SDNC environment. Hence, redundant interactions are forced to be involved in current scheme to increase trust level among entities. Single point failure may happen on the other hand. And the most important issue is that there is no efficient accountability when bad situation happens. By analyzing all this above, we concluded that in order to get efficiency, the essential point is to bring trust. So, as discussed above, for bringing trust, blockchain has been considered as a good candidate. It can be regarded as the infrastructure of trust to empower efficiency of data management. In this part, we'll analyze this point. Via blockchain, IoT data generated by different devices can be efficiently utilized in several applications in a trustworthy way. In the following slides, we'll discuss several typical SDNC applications empowered by blockchain to illustrate its effectiveness. First, high efficient supply chain is important to current industries, which is also a part of SDNC. However, traditional supply chain management faces several challenges, which mainly caused by trust issues. Blockchain is considered as a promising technology to get through all links and tackle the challenges. As COVID-19 continues to spread all around the world, a more robust supply chain is needed. Under this circumstance, blockchain can be used to improve efficiency and trustworthiness among all supply chain scenarios. Among all scenarios, supply chain finance may benefit the most by introducing blockchain. Traditional supply chain finance faces numerous risks, such as breach of contract, difficulty in supervising, and expensive financing. The deep reason of all these risks can be attributed to lack of trust. Commonly, trust cannot flow smoothly through all links of supply chain, especially for the downstream enterprises. The predicament can be easily solved by introducing blockchain in supply chain. When all stakeholders are participants of single blockchain, trust relationship is established at the same time, and all problems will no more exist. The situation can be extended to the whole supply chain scenarios, since trust will remove the barriers inside the supply chain. Another typical SDMC application is smart government, which is more familiar to our residents. Here we present a paradigm of smart government, which is trustworthy data source plus AI or big data analysis. Typically, government data source come from two types of sources. We call them fixed and on-site sources in the left on this slide. Fixed data sources like estate, tax, certification, or etc. And on the on-site IoT data sources like drones and high-definition cameras. Such data is transported to a smart government platform, which contains bus infrastructure and AI or big data analysis functions for further processing. Through the analyzing platform, original data could be trusted among all participants, and future applications will have a common trust base. For instance, each stakeholder could have its fully self-controlled digital identity based on blockchain, which can be used in every smart government applications with no doubt about being tampered. With trust, affairs coordination can be more efficient with facilitated data exchange and sharing, which may have 3 to 5 times rising compared to traditional schemes. Furthermore, based on trustworthy data and participants, AI and big data analysis could provide more efficient and accurate results. The vision of visualized government may not only be a fantasy. A good practice is that in China, blockchain-empowered smart government has been thrived. More than 100 cases have been implemented in over 30 provinces or cities. It provides great convenience for both civilian and business to deal many daily affairs, such as estate transaction, a digital vaccine certification, and a digital invoice. In this slide, we'll discuss network. As the base of digital society, the importance of network is in SDNC is of no doubt. Here is an example of how we apply blockchain in 5G network. Here shows the background of 5G co-construction between China Telecom and China UNU-EGOV. Pretty vivid, huh? The co-construction strategy saves billions of yuan for both sides. And with ZTE, provides a blockchain-based solution for building trust between two sides. This solution has been under POC and realized a pilot program in Zhengzhou, China. Sorry. Trust could be a huge issue in network construction. In this case, we use blockchain for several more specific cases like data attestation, co-governance automation, and confirmation process. Via blockchain, data generated during network construction and operation can have unprecedented trust and become available but invisible for sensitive data by combining blockchain with other new technology. Meanwhile, by utilizing smart contract, co-governance may have a high-level automation, which will further reduce operating costs. Now, in the field of standards, ZTE have continuously contributed in IoT S320 and have completed the relevant standards with S320 colleagues, among which the Y.4561 provides a basic pipeline for data management in IoT by using blockchain. And will continue to contribute in this area of blockchain under the guidance of S320. So after the first decade, new coming requirements and application scenarios are driving blockchain technology into the next generation. So what the future of blockchain will be? In this part, we'll discuss the existing problems from two angles. One is from blockchain itself. The other is from the compatibility of blockchain. That's the meaning of these two question marks. In my opinion, these 5 aspects may be able to reflect the requirements of future data management in IoT and SDNC. The first 3, high performance, feasible interoperability, and flexible scalability, mainly affect the efficiency of management. Privacy preserving meets the rising requirement of data protection. And last, technical compatibility may cater to future potential applications. For blockchain itself, we assume that the evolving blockchain could meet the first 3 requirements. For instance, the higher digitalization level of society requires higher traffic and throughput of data. As you may know, throughput is one of the major limitations of current blockchain, which restricts blockchain application. Therefore, there is a natural match between SDNC requirements and blockchain development. Their interoperability requirements also is a common requirement for both sides. Generally, higher efficiency of SDNC needs to break the barriers between different departments. When there are more than one blockchain, breaking barriers equals to trust circulation among different chains, which is the goal of blockchain interoperability. To sum up, the way blockchain evolving caters to the direction of more efficient SDNC. The complement of each other will achieve a bright future. Privacy preserving is another common interest for both data management and blockchain evolution. Obviously, the right of data privacy is more than important. Besides, data protection is also a critical issue in blockchain, since the nature of it is a public, transparent ledger for all participants. This characteristic will unavoidably suffer the threat of data leakage. Fortunately, privacy-preserving technologies listed here could help blockchain to fix its limitation, and this combination has been an upsurging trend. By introducing privacy-preserving technologies, blockchain could finally realize its ultimate goal, an automated trust infrastructure. And last, I want to talk about the compatibility of blockchain. In other words, what form does blockchain appear in the future applications? The development of blockchain-based application could be roughly divided into 3 stages. The initial stage is preliminary blockchain, which mainly focuses on testifying the feasibility of blockchain. At the very beginning, the application scenario of blockchain is extremely narrow, as well as its compatibility. In this time, most of blockchain programs were in the field of virtual finance. Currently, with the development and the rising acknowledgement of blockchain, blockchain as a service, also known as BaaS, B-A-A-S, has become mainstream research direction. A mature BaaS platform offers various kinds of common API and SDK, which makes developing progress more convenient and flexible. Compatibility and application scenarios can be dramatically raised via BaaS. Furthermore, when we look to future, blockchain native design may be the ultimate vision of value network. Inherent high performance blockchain ability could bear more intelligent and distributed future technologies. Those combinations will further create brand new scenarios. So the future is coming. Let us be full of expectations. That's all for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this very detailed and also very enlightening presentation. It's clear that, combined with what we heard from before more broadly and generally, that we are now getting to a point where we're not just talking concepts, but we are really also seeing roadmaps where the technologies can go. And we see very large, you could call them validation exercises and validation programs, where at a fairly high and large scale, these technologies are then hitting the reality. So thank you so much, and also for highlighting the concrete work that's happening in the study groups here at ITU. Again, there's a very lively conversation in the Q&A. Please keep the questions coming, but we will see if there's time for that in the Q&A later. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
So now we turn to another very experienced face here, Professor Lee from the Liverpool John Moores University, and also KAIST in Korea, and has been working, of course, with the study group 20 and several of the focus groups related to that, and also in E3 in Korea. Very, very active in both ITU, ITF, and 1 and 2M. Professor Lee, it's a pleasure to have you here, and to be able to invite you to take the floor and share your views, and perhaps also some of the questions that are being treated in the focus groups related to this particular view on the technology, so the ledgers and the blockchain. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Can you hear my voice?
Yes,
okay.
And see your slides. We can also see you. Very good.
Okay, so thank you very much. So my presentation topic is trustworthy data ecosystems with a blockchain, particularly for cities and communities. I believe this topic is quite relevant with the previous speaker. So as one of the representatives of ITUT Study Group 20, I also would like to introduce key results of our standardization. So I would like to start firstly data-related aspect. So we started to standard various kind of key topics for IoT in ITUT Study Group 20. So the initial stage, the connectivity was very important for providing certain particular exchanging certain data, various kind of things. That's the reason why we mainly focused on wireless sense networkings, etc. But recently, IoT is more focusing on data aspect. So things are sources of data. So then we are also have a quite good technology for big data. And by using data, so we are also considering various kind of analytic tools like machine learning, etc. So in this regard, data-driven approach is a really essential point for considering a large scale areas such as cities and communities. So in this regard, from this kind of background, so now we are talking about blockchain. So there are lots of different meanings of a blockchain. Very fundamental point is that the currency in the internet is data. So we need to mainly target how we maximize the use of our data. So regarding this point of actually there's one fundamental consideration. So if you look at just the internet, we simply transfer information, but blockchain point of view, we are considering how we transfer ownership. It's a slightly different point. That's the reason why we are thinking about how we consider value. So data can be valuetized. So we can think about how we well interconnect various kind of different data as a value. So in this regard, quite important keyword, so-called Internet of Value, is very important and very essential considerations whenever we consider blockchain. So instead of just thinking about various kind of existing database, so if we support quite transparent and the quite accountable solutions with the blockchain is very good things. However, apart from blockchain, we also need to think about various kind of additional technology, how we well evaluate trust, and how we valutize various kind of resources. And then we also need to well facilitate the transaction over this kind of resources. So in this regard, there are lots of ongoing activities to support sharing resources. So now I would like to show one particular approach. As I mentioned, data can be interpreted as a resource. So more broadly, if we target internal resources, blockchain can be a good candidate to be considered. So internal resources, blockchain can fundamentally enable peer-to-peer transaction of value. So there are lots of different values. In that case, a platform, particularly for enabling and then facilitating sharing resources, is really important. But recently, there are lots of emerging technologies to efficiently share various kind of different resources, but lack of consideration over security and privacy matters. So in this regard, blockchain-enabled sharing technology is really essential point. So I would like to show you various kind of ongoing activities, particularly in IoT study group 20. So we started to think about smart cities, particularly when we consider various kind of data. We well recognize the importance of data management, particularly data processing and management. In this regard, several years before, we established the focus group on data processing and management. At the time, we mainly concentrate on various kind of data management solutions. One part was to consider blockchain-based approach. So based on that one, we have developed so many number of deliverables. Actually, 15 deliverables were developed and then transferred to study group 20. And then we started to develop them as a formal recommendations and a report. So in this regard, as you can see here, now I would like to show some key outcomes of these standardization activities. So before that, we first need to think about why we need standard, particularly for data context. So if we just simply consider or own our personal data without exchanging data, then there's no need for standardization. However, there are lots of activities to facilitate the sharing of data. So in that case, we need to maximize the use of data. So reusability, various kind of sharing aspect is a really fundamental considerations for standardization point of view. So in this regard, in the study group 20, we developed several documents in the context of blockchain-based data management. As you can see here, there is one supplement 62. This one is a general view regarding blockchain in the context of data processing and management. And then there are a couple of recommendations. So one is blockchain-based data exchange and sharing, and the other one is blockchain-based data management. So I would like to just shortly introduce this document. For example, in the overview document, we mainly target to understand blockchain-related aspects in the data processing and management. So there are lots of advantages and some challenges and key features. So we interpreted various kind of technical aspect in the context of a DPM under the IoT and smart cities and communities. So based on that kind of understanding, we came up with certain particular idea regarding an abstract common reference model, as you can see here. So we have well identified various kind of essential components in line with our IoT architecture developed by ITUT. And then similarly, we did some relevant effort to develop more concrete technical solutions. The one is Y.4560. So this one is a blockchain-based data exchange and sharing. As I already indicated in the beginning part, sharing is a really important element. So for securely sharing our resources, blockchain can contribute significantly. So in this regard, as you can see here, we well developed a functional model, and then there is also one diagram regarding platform. So blockchain-based data exchange and sharing. Actually, this is really important areas in terms of certain particular transactions between suppliers and the demanders. So I will show you some other use cases. Actually, whenever we will identify various kind of important demand for both sides, so we can well clarify various kind of areas for technical points. Actually, blockchain is really essential component. Quite similarly, in the second document, Y.4561, so the previous speaker already mentioned, so this one is also related to blockchain, more targeting blockchain-based data management. So this document identify the life cycle of our data processing, and then indicate various kind of important areas. So as you can see here, generic reference model of a blockchain-based data management. Lesson 3, I would like to also mention one more things. So last October study group 20 meeting, at the time we discussed the AIoT, artificial intelligence of things. There are lots of interesting technical components for IoT, such as quite distributed environment by using edge computing. And then actually data and AI need to be well integrated to support various kind of analytic result and some real-time decision making. So at that time, we also well identified the importance of distribution and the decentralization of our blockchain technology. So blockchain also can significantly contribute to support quite decentralized AI component with the help of the secure transactions based on blockchain. So in this regard, study group 20, we decided to start the relevant activities on AIoT. Blockchain is definitely, it can be considered also. Now I would like to show you one more activities in IToT. Couple of years before, we intended to establish certain particular groups on AI and data commons. Actually, last year, the beginning of last year, we established the AI and data commons global initiative. So in this project, there is one interesting idea. Like there are many data owners, and then there are many data users, some case AI developers. So how we facilitate to meet together and then develop quite essential solutions in a collaborative manner. So in this regard, when we investigate various kind of technical aspect, data contribution is really important. So one of the key elements is blockchain-based data sharing. So currently, lots of researchers and many stakeholders, they wanted to facilitate the use of data rather than just the private data. Even starting from private data, we intend to convert private data into public data for quite facilitating the use of data. So that's the really, really essential point. But one other thing is how we consider privacy preserving. So that kind of things need to be well considered. And then similarly, lesson 3 also, there are lots of other activities. Actually, fundamentally, blockchain is really decentralized technologies. So lots of individual resources can be considered, directly without having any particular intermediate agent. Similarly, in the web technological point of view, they are also considering relevant efforts such as decentralized web technologies. And then AI point of view, instead of centralized AI techniques, lesson 3, there are lots of algorithms and different approaches to distribute, and then some cases vertically and some cases horizontally, for example, federated manner. So they wanted to collaborate together. So then don't need to consider one powerful AI tools, but with a very small powers and a very minimum effort, but collaborating with others, we can facilitate lots of good solutions and then development of related ideas. So in that case, fundamentally, blockchain can support lots of interesting ideas in a quite secure and reliable manner. So in this regard, very important things to consider in the future is how we use so many candidate technological solutions based on the key approaches of decentralization. So in this regard, I would like to emphasize the important keyword as a conclusion, as you can see in here, towards a data ecosystems with a decentralization. So basically, data ecosystems is a really, really important areas lesson 3, because many stakeholders, they are building up certain particular platforms. These platforms are basically based on data. So then, instead of just one single data, multiple technical solutions are integrated, and the multiple stakeholders and application vendors are also well integrated. So that's the reason why currently some important keywords such as ecosystem over ecosystems, quite large scale over systems. In that case, just a centralized approach is not appropriate. So decentralization is a really essential point. Then blockchain is really significant element. So in terms of the trustworthiness point of view, if we well maximize the use of blockchain technology, then apart from very traditional security solutions, this approach will support various kind of new features under the umbrella of trustworthiness, such as transparency, data protection, privacy preserving. Actually, one very important point is, apart from just the technical areas, blockchain can consider various kind of different issues regarding policy and regulatory issues, ethics together. So let's think about that kind of pointers. It's actually, I really wanted to emphasize this one as a conclusion. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Lee, for this very thorough and also forward-looking overview. It's encouraging to see, I think, also how stable some of the concepts have actually been since quite some years. So it's not just, a complete chaos. I think actually we are seeing some quite, stable conceptual elements. And now we understand then more and more the relation of these. So the whole notion of the decentralized web, but also how the virtualization now have to find its way to the ground and interact with more precisely with the physical world. There were a few questions, and I'm sure we will get back to some in the end, but perhaps for now, we thank you for the overview, and we continue to the next and our last presenter here, the expert. Thank you so much, Jumyo. And now we have the last but not least of our presenters in today's round of experts to kick off the conversation. So Kathy Mulligan, professor at Decentral Lab. So we pick up exactly where Professor Lee left us. So the decentralized internet. And you have been following this area, obviously, since very long, from a very focused telecoms perspective, working with standards, I don't know how many decades, and also working both for industry, for academia, for the government, and sort of in between, so maybe even the civil society part. So just to give you the formal bio introduction, you are the big era, so European research chair and professor and director of the Decentral, the associated lab. And it actually investigates blockchain and relates technologies for social good and sustainability at the Institute of Superior Technical at the University of Lisbon. So what can I say? You are cross-disciplinary, you are cross-sector, and you are a very experienced voice in this field. So maybe we can expect a little bit of well-deserved cynicism towards the buzzwordiness that's going on here, but also focus on where the real value is on some of the alleged technologies, and I'm sure precision in the terms we'll be using. And please keep the questions coming for Kathy and the rest of the colleagues here, and we will, after this presentation, we will open up for questions and answers. So Kathy, the floor is yours.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Martin. It's lovely, really lovely to be here, and some really great presentations preceded me. And so it's a fantastic opportunity. So what I'm going to do, as Martin sort of indicated, I always do this a little bit, especially with standardization discussions. What I'm going to do is talk a little bit more about some of the future vision of what we could do with these technologies. So, you know, very skilled colleagues have already given excellent presentations on the state of the art and the state of standards today. I'm going to look a little bit around what's happening outside of the standardization bodies and what this might imply for standardization, but also the future of cities themselves. So let's get started. So I was sort of thinking a lot while I was doing preparing this presentation, and you know we've done a lot of work in the lab, and we've done a lot of work you know in previous universities I was at, and we sort of traditionally speak about blockchain in cities from the idea of identity management, integrity, data integrity, planning, using data streams in a new way to create planning, to prioritize local commerce, which is another important aspect of a city. You know, how do we get the economics of a city working? But also, as colleagues have been talking about in their presentations around interoperability, the security of IoT devices, and then things like you know, trying to achieve the SDGs through energy, water, and pollution management, improving public transport. And then, of course, there's things around efficiency of the city itself. How do we get departmental transparency and help people work faster and more efficiently? And how do we do land property and housing management? And then there's some really new things that have started to come out that we're also seeing applied into the city space these days. One is non-fungible tokens, or the NFT sort of concept. Another one is something called a DAO, or a decentralized autonomous organization. And I wanted to sort of not go into detail on these types of technologies, but think a little bit about the implications of what these things really mean for cities, and by extension, what it means for the standardization. There we go. And then as Martin mentioned, you know, the decentral lab in Instituto Superior Técnico, we're very concerned with sustainability and social good. So whatever I do, I always place this technology and these ideas and these concepts within the context of the climate crisis. So cities are key contributors to the climate change, and, you know, cities are responsible for 75% of global CO2 emissions. And transport and buildings are among the largest contributors to that. So one of the things I often think about when we're trying to build for cities, trying to work with local authorities, is, you know, actually a lot of the things we use as frame of reference today may actually be completely useless by tomorrow. So for example, you know, San Francisco as a city is now looking at buying back land and moving people out of the parts of that city that are going to be inundated basically by seawater. And there's a lot of cities around the world that are probably going to be in a similar situation. And then, you know, as many of the our previous sort of colleagues just mentioned before, you know, we're actually not alone in our cities. We tend to walk around cities and feel that we're actually, you know, we dominate this space. But as soon as COVID hit and the spaces were empty again, the streets were, you know, in particular in the UK, we were in lockdown for a very long period of time. But actually what you saw was quite rapidly animals took over these deserted town centres again. So one of my favourites were these mountain goats that inundated a Welsh village and were basically just took over the entire space. You know, and I think it's important to understand and remember that cities aren't isolated entities. You know, we're not alone actually in city context. And it's not just the wildlife we need to think about, but also it's the relationship of a city to its hinterland, and the relationship increasingly between other cities. So the connections between cities, but definitely the connection to the hinterland. And that's where a lot of the climate impact actually comes from. And I sort of, you know, a lot of people have been talking today about the very traditional, sort of very industrial style of blockchain. And I wanted to bring a few things up, you know. So El Salvador has the world's coolest dictator. And I'd like to point out that's what he calls himself. I didn't call him that. He calls himself that on Twitter, that he's the world's coolest dictator. And he's brought in not just Bitcoin as legal tender, he's very recently started to, you know, to think about, well, how do I create a Bitcoin city? So that, you know, a city funded by and run by Bitcoin. So they're planning on raising, you know, I think it was $1 billion US, you know, in cryptocurrency, basically, to build this city. And I thought it brings up some interesting points about what a city is and how we're actually going to really genuinely engage with this type of space going forward. So, you know, this was another part of the Bitcoin city that he was talking about at this, probably the coolest sort of discussion around cities I've ever seen. It was a very, very cool event, but he was talking about 0% income tax, 0% capital gain, 0% property tax, 0% payroll tax. And so one of the questions that comes up there is, okay, but why do you need Bitcoin to do any of that? Actually, you don't need Bitcoin to set your tax rate at 0. You can do that in your native currency. You don't really need Bitcoin. And so, you know, one of the questions that, you know, is worth thinking about is, okay, well, what are these cryptocurrency-driven cities really actually about? And are they really about stepping outside of our traditional understanding of how we build cities, but societies and communities in general? So is it something else that they're actually pushing for? And, you know, I always, if I refer to one person as a dictator, I also have to think about the other end of this as well. So, you know, there are visions of capitalist dictatorships that are also built from blockchain and cryptocurrency bases. So the CEO of Walmart came out recently with Tolosa, and he's basically, it's a vision of a city based on equitism, which is his idea around you know, it's equal capitalism. So the amount of money you put in is the amount of equality that you actually get. But if you look at the videos around this vision, what he's talking about is saying that everyone who pays their taxes gets full access to all of the different services that are available in this city. So basically, he has this very impassioned plea to say that, if you're paying taxes, you should be able to have access to free healthcare and free schooling, etc., etc. And Martin, you'll be well aware that actually we already have this in the world. It's called Denmark. So maybe we should all just move there instead. But I think the idea here is that, these technologies are being used to fundamentally challenge some of our most fondly and most well-known, understood concepts of social norms that we have in the world around cities and around technologies and how they used to build these cities. So very briefly, cities act as aggregators. So I really liked Samaya's presentation where she touched on the idea that you could decentralize the city itself. And actually, in theory, you possibly could. But cities are aggregators. They aggregate money, they aggregate power, work, production, and also consumption. So since the Industrial Revolution, they have been the aggregators of production and consumption. And lots of economists have written huge amounts of work on that. But they also are often acting as centers of money and power in particular nation states. So they're also aggregators of poverty, powerlessness, unemployment, CO2 and environmental impacts, and the waste streams. So they're aggregating positive things, but they're also sometimes aggregating, well, quite often actually, the negative angles as well. And so how can we use these technologies to redistribute some of these negative aspects in a positive way? So one of my favorite quotes is, philosophies and concepts and stories that we use to make sense in an uncertain global present, they're ideas that are inherited from a different time and a different place. So, the kind of thinking that created today's mess basically is unlikely to help us solve it. And I think this is actually crucial to think about when we're addressing blockchain and cryptocurrencies. The reason for that is these technologies really can help us fundamentally redefine some of the biggest problems that we've created in the 20th century to create a just, equal, sustainable society in the 21st. So we need to not just think about materialities of place, and I think a lot of the blockchain work has been about materialities of the place or the city, but also to rethink those imaginary and intangible concepts that we have been designing with, basically. So a small thought here as well, which is that, the electric light didn't actually come from the continuous improvement of candles. If we had tried to create electricity from improving candles, we would have basically all still be sitting here with, probably much larger wax tubes. Sometimes we actually need to take a fundamental break in how we approach engineering and design. And I think we're coming now to a new period where we have to take one of those fundamental breaks. I think it's critical for the telecommunications industry. I think it's critical also for a lot of the organizational methods that we've used for cities, for organizations, and indeed education. So just a very brief sort of digression maybe to look at the waves of innovation. So looking here at the Kondratiev waves, the idea here is to place these movements in this against the concept of the massive shift of history. So I won't go into too much detail, but with the Industrial Revolution sort of came around in the late 1800s. We got electrical technology, probably, properly in the early 1900s. That gave us mass production. That's when we start to see mass production of, for example, cars. So, we think about Henry Ford and the Ford Motor Company creating mass production, which has been replicated across all industries. But by the time we get to the 70s, we've moved into individual mobility. And that's when nearly everybody starts to have a car. But if we look at the ICT industry, so, by probably the 60s, 70s, we start to grow into what we call the information technology era. And that's where, you know, it's the equivalent of mass production, basically, for the car market. What we're seeing now is a move towards much more individualized data and much more control over your own data, and actually data being a fundamental next step of that condotry of waves. The data forms the basis of large parts of our economy. So I'm running out of time, so I won't go into this too much detail, but you know, 100 years ago, people really thought electricity was about lights. They didn't think it was about washing machines or fridges. And what we think we know about data today is not really what we understand or will know anything about of what is coming tomorrow. And so if we think about data and we think about the city concept, you know, the cities are actually home to many of the intangible imaginaries of human life. So they're home to our economy, basically. They're home to a lot of aspects of our society. And so, you know, and lots of aspects of our culture. So, you know, I've just moved to Lisbon. You know, the interaction with the city, the understanding of the city was very indicative of the culture of Portugal. The same, you know, probably not the same for London. It's a mega city, but in many of the other cities I've lived in, Stockholm, for example, you can feel the culture, you can understand the culture replicated in place and also in the intangible aspects of those cities. The point is that these are really made up. So our economy is made up because we have all agreed that this is the way that capitalism is going to work. We've all agreed that our culture is going to have certain norms around it. And, you know, we've tacitly agreed to all of these rules. And so communities, so I was very happy to see that, you know, it's we've moved beyond the concept of smart cities to smart communities, because for me, that takes the concept of community out of the location of city. Community is actually going to be the most important thing, you know, intangible, I think, going forward. And those communities are formed across cities. They're not necessarily only within cities anymore. The point about this is, if we've agreed that these are the rules of our economy and our society and our culture, well, actually, we can agree that those rules no longer hold, and we can agree that there are better ways to do things. And so that's one of the things that I think is really important to think about for blockchain. It gives us the opportunity to fundamentally rethink some of these things within the city context. So what are the challenges for standardization? And notwithstanding the fantastic work obviously done at the ITU and in many different standards bodies around the world, and I know, Martin, you've worked very extensively, and you know, the MIMs are really great pieces of work. But I was thinking, you know, within the context of standardization, what are the actual challenges that we're faced with these changes and trying to redesign intangible aspects of a city as well as the physical aspects? Traditional standardization is very technology deterministic for obvious reasons, and it's technology driven. So, you know, when we think about a standard, we tend to go directly to the technology base rather than thinking about, well, actually, if I change this piece of technology standard, I'm actually affecting the economic structure. With blockchain and cryptocurrency, you actually are. And that is something that I think is really deeply needs to be understood. And really, it's something that's not necessarily happened in standardization directly before, where you would, you know, make a change to your, I don't know, your core network standardization documents. That doesn't necessarily have a massive impact on your economic structure, but with blockchain and cryptocurrencies, they can and they do. So, you know, one of the challenges would be, how is standardization going to move beyond that? And in particular, if we're talking about data management, data now is well beyond the boundary of the firm, the traditional boundary of the firm. So how is that going to be actually effectively managed? And you can think about that, you know, there's work on privacy and security, et cetera, but if you're going to use some of the blockchain standardization, then how are you going to move beyond that technology determinism? And new types of standardization are needed to link economic, social, and technical aspects together in a better way. And it's much more complicated. And I think actually one of the reasons that cryptocurrencies became so successful and so popular in these types of spaces is because originally they thought they didn't really need to engage with the standardization process. We all know that's probably not necessarily true, but you know, that was one of the reasons for it. I'm running out of time here, so I will skip through the end. And my final caveat, which I say for all blockchain presentations and all presentations on smart cities, you know, in Sydney, I grew up in Sydney. We had a beautiful beach one day, and the next day we had such an incredible storm that, you know, it cut out quite a lot of energy. It drowned basically the swimming areas. It was literally the worst carnage I'd ever seen. There was a lot of actually very high-tech solutions in place in Sydney to manage all of these. They all failed. You know, what actually happened was people went around knocking on the door saying, you now need to evacuate. So they were reduced to sending people door to door. So how can we, if we're moving into a period of massive climate change, how can we actually ensure that these technologies are resilient and robust enough to actually cope with these kind of things? And we, you know, myself and my family ended up using a hand cranked radio, basically, because that was the only way to truly get the information. So I always finish on that point, just to annoy you, Martin. And thank you very much for the opportunity. It's great to be here, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy, also for the warning words. And maybe the future vision was also a little bit of a warning, perhaps, that, well, the technology-driven approach may not actually be as creative or as appropriate for shaping our urban and community fabric. So there's this thing that, you know, all cities are communities, but not all communities are cities. So actually, it's wherever we may put, you know, our feet and put two sticks together. So thank you so much for that. And we have now collected a sizable list of questions here for the colleagues. So I hope we can spend the last 15 minutes or so to reflect on those. There's everything about, you know, so how do we, in terms, are there any standards for the process management of introducing blockchain and similar technologies? What about some of the side effects? So the privacies of evading supervision or regulation. So what about crime, trafficking, the dark side of the economy, energy consumption, scalability? I mean, are these even good technologies for transactions, or are they just, you know, friction we add to transactions? What about lots of questions about the particular applications, permits, and so on? Will quantum computing completely moot our, you know, the applicability of some of these technologies and so on? And finally, the very, very important point about the non-technical views, quite related to what you presented, Kathy. So how do we ensure a conversation of, well, the majority, I believe, of the world's population, which are not technical experts, and ensure that also in the conversation more generally about the direction of our societies, that there is a balance, or at least that there's an inclusive discussion. So maybe if I may turn to you, Sumaya, as our first speaker, maybe just a general question. I mean, why should local administrative units, governments, entities of different types and sectors, why should they even, you know, interest themselves or invest time and money in blockchain technologies? I mean, yes, there is the technology-driven, buzzwordy approach, so fear of missing out, but also the issue-driven approach. What kind of problems are there if it's just fear of missing out, and you know, the investments are made without even understanding the short and the longer term priorities? Can you reflect on this, the incentives, and you know, who should do what, with what motives, if you can reflect on that for us. If you are here. I don't know, Sumaya, if you hear us. I don't know if there's anyone hearing me. Just maybe good to have a confirmation.
I can hear you, Martin.
Very good, Kathy. We can have a conversation about this. Okay, maybe Sumaya, we go to next, just in case you're not hearing us well now. So I'd like to go to Dr. Chu. Maybe a little bit along the same line, but maybe if we can focus on the data management, taking departure in your presentation as well. Is there a unique advantage that blockchain and similar technologies can bring to data management? I mean, there are so many other ways there, and of course we heard Kathy saying about this perimeter-based version versus there are no borders, everything is like zero trust, and every transaction needs to have all the protocols in place. Can you say something about what is the particular advantages that you see coming from blockchain?
Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, thank you for your question. As I mentioned before, the unique advantage of blockchain is to bring trust. Well, trust issue is a common problem in almost all management areas, not only in data management. The characteristics of blockchain, such as transparent, auditable, and tamper-proof, make trust circulate among all participants of data management. With trust, the flow of data management could be more simplified, which may further enhance efficiency. Therefore, we believe that trust is the answer to your question. Thank you.
Thank you so much also for the clear question. And I think it's also related to many of the issues we had before. Maybe I can follow up with Professor Lee, if we can maybe have your perspective of some of the same. So of course, your departure is very much a data-centric approach. Well, so the data lifecycle management and everything emanates in a way from there. How do we support that in the context of data processing and management? So can you also reflect on this, the particular characteristics that the blockchain would bring in this? So we heard now trust. Can it become more specific, perhaps, when it's related to the data processing and management in smart cities and community platforms?
Yeah, first of all, in the smart cities and communities perspectives, we need to think about how we use data publicly. So open data or public data instead of private data. But mostly data come from individual users. So in this regard, in order to consider public data, there are lots of processing needed. So blockchain can help us to maintain or various kind of legal issues, for example. So actually, I didn't carefully explain certain particular issues regarding GDPR, something like this. So most important thing is whenever we build certain particular technical solutions, we need to think about legal compliance. So in this context, blockchain is really a good solution to think about various kind of legal issues, some governance issues. So mostly, if we just simply consider certain particular technologies, it's not really perfect to consider various kind of different aspects regarding some non-functional aspect together. But blockchain can consider various kind of different elements, such as smart contract, etc. So there are lots of flexibility to consider various kind of different views, especially from the governance, from city perspectives. So I believe this is really important things. And then if we really consider this kind of public data, another thing is sharing. So the reason why we are talking about public data is to share various kind of data to maximize the particular application areas. So in that case, in order to consider data sharing, the one more fundamental aspect is a trust. Actually, we already well identified, right? So blockchain is really a good candidate to support trust. So two things. One is how we well consider various kind of legal compliance issues. Second thing is we need to build up trustworthy environment. So then blockchain is really important element. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I mean, so it's still related to the trustworthiness, the trust, but also linking to the governance, because
Right,
trust is not singular, right? It's a process, and maybe also a reflection. So yes, now technologies are really getting embedded in the physical world, and yes, there are sheep and other pieces of nature to take into account, but also the different cultural contexts that are as different as the nature context. So trying to understand then the relationships between what the technologies can do to ensure the, let's say, cultural compatibility and relevance of the technologies becomes very important. Is also what I hear you saying, that the technology can be adapted in a way to fit the cultural context. Okay, if we allow some further question here, so Kathy, maybe to you. So you said that electricity gave us the washing machine and not, better candlestick replacements. But can we see already now the outline of what has been termed maybe a data-driven society, or at least the economy is incredibly dominated by certain data flows. We don't have to mention any of the big names here, but they are certainly becoming very dynamic forces in the economy, and also physically. I mean, the energy consumption, maybe we can come back to that and so on. Is there any indication, is there any outline of which of these future scenarios that you outlined are even relevant to consider? Can we see some of this coming related to blockchain, perhaps?
Yeah, so from my perspective, I think we're both uniquely lucky and probably cursed, I guess, because we're actually in the middle of watching the transition to what I would classify a completely different type of economy. We're moving towards a fully digital economy. And as we saw with the 100 odd years ago, there's been a rush to monopolize those aspects, and so I think that without mentioning any names, I think we're starting to see some pushback against that from a legal perspective. But what we're also seeing is these fantastic solutions, powered by things like blockchain, not just blockchain, but things like blockchain, that allow us to decentralize the notion of data management. So it means that you and I are able to manage our own data, or we're at least able to engage with the data management process together with a company in a more educated manner. And I think that we're starting to see a much more educated group citizenry as well. So I think it's definitely starting to happen. Definitely.
Okay. So a fully datafied economy, if you will, and that of course goes also to the the issues, the let's say the negative externalities of that economy, which you also pointed to, all of you. We are approaching the end here. So Sumaya, I just want to hear if you hear us, if you are available in that sense for reflection. But otherwise, I would ask each of the panelists to offer a final word, a final sentiment before we give the floor back to the master of ceremony. But one thing that stood out in the questions, apart from the broad, I mean, the non-tech involvement, so the cultural elements, the classical economic elements, the social inclusivity, the green sustainability of this. Do you have any reflections on whether blockchain as such is a problem? I mean, is it inefficient and cannot be fixed? Is it too energy consuming and so on? Feel free to include that if you think that there are some red flags that should be immediately addressed, or whether that is already addressed in the more modern versions of the lectures. So perhaps, yeah, okay, so there was also a question there in the box. Will these technologies make us more vulnerable? I mean, will these technologies increase the risk? So I don't know if you want to just very, very quickly around the panel reflect on this. So Sumaya, if you can hear us, you go first. If not,
yes, the sound is back now. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. So
sorry, I couldn't
you have
hear
the
you
opportunity
earlier.
to this.
Yes. So basically, I think, of course, there is dark side in the technology, and this is why it's important to have a very responsible use of the technology in general. And it's good to analyze the implications before adopting any technology or implementing any technology. So verifying that it's viable for the users, it's viable for this city as well, for the security of the city. So it's very important to make sure that the technology is adapted to the need, and not just, as Martin was saying, just to have adopting the technology for the technology and just being interested about the hype, because there is a huge hype on blockchain technology. So yes, we might be vulnerable in front of any technology if it's not prepared, if we are not prepared and we are not checking and verifying and analyzing all the implication of this technology. So I think it's a very important step before any adoption. Thank you.
Thank you for those wise words. Allow me to once again thank our experts and panelists for the presentations and for your reflections. And I give the floor back to you, Maitali. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Martin, and thank you so much for guiding us through the discussions, for really facilitating a very active discussion. We saw that the moderator as well as the speakers are very active on the Q&A section, so it was very encouraging to see that. Thank you. All the questions were addressed. So wrapping up, and we'll move on to the last leg of our webinar for today, for which I would like to hand the floor to Mr. Nasser Al-Marzouki, who is the ITUT Study Group 20 Chairman. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Matli, for giving me the floor. Thank you for moderating the session. Thanks to Martin, to the distinguished speakers. Thanks also to Dr. Biji for the opening remarks. I have actually enjoyed listening to the discussions and to the information from different colleagues and speakers. It was very informative. So I'd like to first thank everyone for joining us for this webinar, and big thank to all our speakers for joining us, and for UNU for co-organizing this webinar with ITU. Today we have discussed at length how blockchain technology can be applied to enhance data management in smart cities and communities. We saw how Bitcoin is being implemented in El Salvador, and how international initiatives such as the OASC, United for Smart Sustainable Cities, continue to this discussion with a new report on blockchain for cities. And by the way, yesterday we had our 6th meeting, and there was a new thematic group established within the United for Smart Sustainable Cities, and it was a very productive meeting, which actually I'm very pleased to chair this very important initiative. As you have heard, IoT Study Group 20 has developed a set of technical standards that help to define the requirements and functional models of blockchain-based data exchange and sharing systems for supporting IoT and smart cities and communities. Looking forward, IoT Study Group 20 will continue to explore the potential of leveraging blockchain for sustainable development and the role of standards in the process. The group is already working to develop new standards that help to define a set of common vocabulary related to blockchain in the context of data processing and management, and as was indicated already by Professor Lee, the chairman of the focus group on data processing and management that concluded their work almost 2 years ago. They had a number of deliverables that were already transferred to Study Group 20. Some of them are already being agreed to be standards, and the others are still in discussions. You can find more information on the smart city standards we are working on in the work program of Study Group 20, which is available on the IoT Study Group 20 website. I also encourage you to join us in the rest of ITU webinar series on digital transformation for cities and communities and learn more about our smart city standards. If you have any questions or feedback regarding the webinar or the work of ITU on blockchain or smart sustainable cities, please feel free to reach out to us. We would love to hear from you. So please also be informed that the highlights of this webinar, including key recommendations, along with all presentations delivered, will be made available on the ITU website. So I wish you all a wonderful rest of the day, and thanks again for joining this webinar. With that, I declare this webinar closed. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Almarzuki. Just following on from Mr. Almarzuki's remarks, we will have episode 12 on interoperability of IoT and satellite data for Earth observation supporting sustainable development next week, next Tuesday. So please join us for that webinar as well. It will take place from 3 to 5 p.m. Geneva time. You can reuse the same registration link. So there's no re-registration required. So we look forward to welcoming you all next week for exploring another dimension. So please join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you all. Goodbye.
Thank you so much.